Welcome back to another episode of COS Live. My name is Andrew Woodruff. I'll be your host for this episode. And of course, I'm joined by our own Rita Peters, who is the Senior Vice President of Legislative Affairs. But of course, she's also my co-host and she's my partner in crime. Rita, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I can't wait to speak with our guest today.
I can't wait as well. We have a very great program lined up for you. Of course, we will have a quick news update with some commentary. Then we'll get to our exclusive interview with Natalie Travers, who is a 13-year-old volunteer in South Carolina, but don't let her age fool you. She is fearless. She stood up in front of a crowded room and in front of legislators to testify on behalf of Convention of States. So we're going to get her perspective and hear how that experience went for her. Of course, before we get to all of that, we have our Article 5 trivia giveaway with COS Vice President Mike Ruthenberg. Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Rita. Thanks for having me here for my little section on trivia. It's always fun to be part of a broadcast that's helping people who support the Convention of States project or who are worried or wondering why we're even paying attention to this, to be able to add my 2 cents worth. And there's so many people right now that are just looking for a solution. There's a lot of complaining going on. You watch the news and you see a lot of people talking about all the bad things that are going on, but we actually have a solution that's as big or bigger than the problem. And that rolls me right into the question of the day. And as you can see, I'm wearing a Hell No Joe shirt. That's certainly something that I'm going to be active about to make sure that the Biden administration doesn't take away my Second Amendment rights. And so I'm proudly wearing this shirt, available in the Convention of States store right now. All you got to do is go to shopconventionofstates.com. You can get this shirt or one of about a dozen shirts and display your support for Convention of States and what we're doing. And as a matter of fact, that's what the winner of our trivia question today is going to get. You'll be able to go into Convention of States or shopconventionofstates.com, choose whatever shirt you want, and we will send it to you free of charge. And if you're not lucky enough to win, just go there anyway. The shirts are very reasonably priced and they are ready to ship. So now let's talk a little bit about what's going on. And way back in the founding days, Colonel George Mason is credited with being the founding father who included Convention of States in the Constitution. And that's an important question. The question that I have for you today is, what state did George Mason represent? What state did he represent? I'll tell you a little bit more about him when I get back. But for now, just type in as quick as you know it, what state did George Mason represent at the Constitutional Convention? And you're going to want to stick around till the end because there's some really interesting facts about George Mason that I'll bet you didn't know. Anyway, back to you, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mike. Well, the Biden administration is at it again, doing their best to make America a better place. If only that were the reality, because the Biden administration is now pushing a rule that would prioritize taxpayer-funded grants for schools that want to push the critical race theory and the anti-American, anti-historical 1619 project. If the rule were to take effect, it would allow schools to put an emphasis on things like structural racism, implicit bias, and of course, prioritizing equality of outcomes, which is anti-American. All of this is anti-American. It puts people into perpetual victimhood. And then, of course, it makes people hate America, and it creates a lot of discrimination, really, against certain ethnicities. Rita, as our Senior Vice President of Legislative Affairs and also the author of Restoring America's Soul, would you be able to tell us what this would mean if it were to take effect?
You know, it sounds harmless enough, but it's really important for people to dig in and understand exactly what we're talking about here. These theories, critical race theory, undermines the founding of our country by promoting this idea that America was founded on racism and is still shot through with racism. And the only way to root out our racist past supposedly, is to totally remake our country and tear up our so many issues and topics. Biden and his bureaucrats are using our money as a bribe to push policies that many Americans don't like. So schools that implement these curricula will be prioritized for federal grants, which are funded by Americans from all across the country, us. And schools that receive those grants will soon become dependent on that money, and critical race theory will then become a permanent feature of their curriculum. So this is how, using federal mandates as a stick and federal dollars as the carrot, bureaucrats in DC dictate what our kids learn and how they are taught. Enough is enough. We have to push back against this kind of underhanded overreach. And the best way to do that is through an Article 5 Convention of States. A Convention of States is called and controlled by the states. These amendments can prohibit the federal government from spending money on anything that's not expressly mandated or mentioned in the Constitution, including this kind of leftist curriculum and anti-American teaching methods. Amendments can also impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, which will force them to spend our money on things that benefit all. Over 5 million Americans have already voiced their support for the Convention of States project, and nearly 2 million have signed the Convention of States petition. So to join this movement, add your name at conventionofstates.com.
And one of those supporters, and actually a volunteer, is Natalie Travers, who is joining us live from the South Carolina Capitol. Natalie, how are you doing? All right, well, we are pleased to welcome Natalie Travers, who is a 13-year-old volunteer with Convention of States, South Carolina, and she is broadcasting live right now from the South Carolina Capitol. Natalie, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good, well, thank you for joining us. I just want to jump into my very first question. What was it like when you testified in support of Convention of States in front of such a large crowd, and more importantly, in front of all those legislators?
Well, I was very nervous, as can be expected, but once you get speaking, you kind of just get into the flow of it, and it was very important to me to be able to speak, so I was delighted to have the opportunity.
Well, give us little details on it. Like, tell us what you said and just fill us in on exactly how it felt.
Well, I spoke about the necessity of acting now, so voting yes, of course, on COS, and then risk versus reward, because a lot of people are very hesitant about COS because they're worried there's too many risks. So spoke about that. Walking to the building where I was going to have testimony, I was very, very nervous. But then I was also nervous that I wouldn't get the chance to speak. But then when I actually did get the chance, I had to just tell that story. Use it. And it was really amazing because Mr. Sam McDonald, he was actually going to originally be the one speaking, and he gave his time slot to me to do my speech. So that was an incredible opportunity.
That's so great, Natalie. Tell us how you found out about COS and why you support the movement.
Well, it was my father who originally got he got involved with the movement, and he became a very big person within it in South Carolina. And I decided that the country's falling apart. I think the government has way too much power. And I think COS is one of the few things we can still do to stop it before it's too late. So anything I can do to help to save the country.
It's amazing and really quite inspirational hearing that you are ready to stand up for Convention of States and for the country at such a young age. Would you tell us a little bit, like, is there someone that influences you to stand up for liberty? Are there thinkers that you consume or a particular author that you read, something that influences you to be such a amazing patriot at such a young age?
Well, Rush Limbaugh, he wrote some of the books, the Rush Revere books, and my father read those to me when I was pretty young, so that helped me I learned a lot about patriotism from those books, and it was really my father and my mother who got me interested in politics in general and the COS movement.
Well, Natalie, we have seen a lot of, in our movement with COS, we see a lot of great young people, but generally speaking, we hear a lot of people say that the younger generations, your generation, don't have the same kind of love for America that some of us older people do. And I don't know, maybe some of that is due to the kind of education we have today and these radical ideas that are introduced that seem purposefully to distill a dislike. If there's one thing, Natalie, that you could say about America and why young Americans should value this country, what would it be?
Because there is nowhere else in the entire world like America. There's nowhere where you can go to be free. There's nowhere we can have the same opportunities, and we have to save it before there is nowhere in the world other.
And so what is most concerning for you about where the United States is headed? Is there a particular issue that you see that most concerns you, or what would that be?
The threat of the prospect of socialism coming over America is a big one. I'm also concerned about inflation. And I mean, there's a million little issues, but those are the main ones. Mostly, I'm worried that socialism is going to take over our country.
Well, as you know, Natalie, our resolution covers 3 topics: imposing fiscal restraints, term limits, and limits on federal overreach. So in light of what's going on in DC today, do you have a favorite amendment idea that falls within those 3 categories?
Well, I think those 3 categories are what covers it. We gotta lower the budget because of money issues, and we can't have the federal government have so much power. More specifically, I am worried about there's a lot of voting fraud, so those issues are pretty big. But generally those 3 topics cover it all.
So then, what are your plans after you graduate high school? Do you think you'll go to college, or what's next for you?
Well, I have also actually been invited to internship with Mark Meckler, so I'll be doing that when I get to the age. And then afterwards, I haven't decided on a career, of course, but I have a few ideas. But it might be interesting to go into politics, but it's a dirty game, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been a pleasure having you. I know that you're really busy right now at the South Carolina Capitol, and you and all of the Convention of State supporters there are rallying in support for our resolution, which is absolutely amazing. Thank you for giving some of your time to us today to talk about what your experience was like when you testified in front of those legislators. Natalie, hope you'll come join us again.
Thanks, Natalie.
Thank you for having me.
It is an honor to have the opportunity to speak to you all today. My name is Natalie Travers, and even at 13 years old, I am worried about my country. Thomas Jefferson once said, "How little do my countrymen know what precious blessings they are in possession of which no other people enjoy. Americans do not know how good they have it. And I'm afraid that if we do nothing to fight the growing federal government, we will soon find out how good we had it. We need to put an end to this tyranny before it is too late to save our beautiful country. Convention of States is a shimmer of hope in all this darkness. I believe that there are many good people out there who want to do something to help, but don't know what that something is. Short of running for election, what can we people do to help our country? The answer is COS. By limiting the power of the federal government, establishing term limits, and requiring federal fiscal responsibility, we can finally put up a boundary to this parasite's never-ending power. We can still save America, but we have to act now. I understand that there are risks, but there are risks in everything. Whenever one makes a decision, they must look at the risks and the rewards and decide which one outweighs the other. In my opinion, the rewards of Convention of States far outweigh the risks, but that's just my opinion. All I ask of you is to look at the risks and the rewards and make a logical, educated decision. You may want to consider this. If not Convention of States, what can we do to stop this tyranny? COS may be our last hope at evolution. I will not just sit around as my country is destroyed. I will stand up for all I love and hold dear. I will stand up for America. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm back, and I hope that you're excited to hear the answer to this question. You probably already knew that George Mason, who's credited with being the founding father who brought up the idea of, which was, of course, very popular. It went with very little debate, and it was unanimous to add Convention of States to our Constitution, the second provision of Article 5. The father, George Mason, of course, represented the state of Virginia. Virginia was his state. Now, what's really interesting about George Mason was he is not one of the founders, one of the signers of our Constitution. You may think, oh, wait, how is that so? How could such a great founding father not sign the Constitution? You might think, what was wrong with this guy? Well, there was nothing wrong with George Mason because he believed that the Constitution should abolish slavery, and it didn't. We know it was a really difficult topic during that era, and he did not want to he did not want to sign a Constitution that did not. It also did not contain what we often take for granted, which is the Bill of Rights. Remember, the original Constitution did not contain the Bill of Rights. Think about, I was just talking about the Second Amendment and others in the Bill of Rights. It didn't include it. So he didn't think it went far enough. But another interesting thing about George Mason was he took from his home state of Virginia the Declaration of Rights and put it forward to these United States to use as a model, which it largely was, for our Bill of Rights. So George Mason, a super important founding father of ours, a reluctant statesman, however, he made it known that he would rather be on his farm than involve himself in public affairs, but he felt that his country needed him the most, and he heeded that call. So that's a little bit more about George Mason. I hope you enjoyed this time. Again, if you didn't win this wonderful shirt or any of the shirts that you can choose from as the winner of our question today, just go to shopconventionofstates.com, place that order. They'll ship it out within 24 hours, and you'll have your shirt in no time. Back to you, Andrew.
Well, thanks, Mike. Well, we're going to sign off. It's been a great episode of COS Live, but it's time for us to go ahead and end the program. I know right now it seems pretty desperate in DC. Career politicians, they're spending your money. They spend way too much time in the swamp. And of course, they're way too cozy with inserting their opinion and trying to control your life. But don't worry, there is a plan to roll back the abuses of power that we have seen. The founders knew that we would be in this situation. They knew that the federal government would go beyond its enumerated powers. And so they gave us the solution in Article 5. It's right there in the US Constitution. That's why Convention of States is attempting to use Article 5 to put we the people back in charge. And the movement is well underway. We have 15 states that have passed the COS resolution. 34 is that magic number. As soon as we get to 34 states, we'll be able to send those career politicians packing. We'll be able to force Washington, D.C. to spend our money wisely. And of course, we will be able to permanently prevent the federal government from reaching into our lives. And these amendments, they will be ironclad. So if you want to join this movement, please go to www.conventionofstates.com, sign and share the petition. After you sign the petition, make sure to join one of your local teams, become a leader. We need you in this fight for liberty. And Rita, please tell them where they can go for social media.
Don't forget to do that. It's really important. Follow us on Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, Parler, and Instagram. We have new American-made apparel at conventionofstates.com/store. Check that out, and check out the Battle Cry with COS President Mark Meckler. That's Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll see you again next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time for another edition of COS Live. And remember, if you're looking for the person who's going to save the Republic, look in the mirror. Thanks for watching.